Hey, this is for Heart Shape Booty Day 22. I have your second routine for you, and this is a standing bench workout. So we will need a bench or some sort of elevation that's similar. So coffee table or a chair, probably no higher than a chair. Make sure the chair is a very sturdy if you're going to use a chair. Now, the same as before, the time format that we'll run through is setting the timer to be 1 minute rounds of 15 seconds rest or transition and 45 seconds of work. So everything is counted in 1 minute increments, and that 15 seconds will be optional for you to take all of the 15 minutes if you need it, or just to work through it. Okay, so and as before, we have 2 minutes on the warm up, and then one round is equal to 6 minutes in the meaty middle, and then a 2 minute bookending with a static stretch. So basically it would be a 10-minute complete mini workout that you could then escalate or tier up into additional 6 minutes if you wanted to do 2 rounds or even 3 rounds. If you did 3 rounds and you used sufficient weight, that could be a really great full workout versus a mini workout. Okay, now today's optional weights are your optional equipment, okay, to tier it up. All right, so as before, I will have my timer on. You'll hear the beeping at the 15-second mark and the 45-second mark. So we'll do 2 minutes on the warm-up to begin. All right, so here we go. Now we're going to start with the box squats. Okay, so remember, we're going to use the bench to sit down first, so that we basically fix our position and we don't have to change the feet. All right, so keep your knees apart and drive straight up, but as you come down and extend up here with the squeeze, but as you come down, you're going to hinge back and tap down very, very gently. Okay, so it's a controlled sit. When you're coming up, drive through the heels and aim to go head straight up, squeeze, but hinge and tap down. Okay, this is just your warm-up, so if you want to use weights here, that's fine. If you want to have a booty band above your knees, that's fine. Don't forget to squeeze. Okay, so that was already 1 minute. This would be either your break time or you just continue on. So hinge back. So even if you're sort of speeding through this for the purposes of a warm-up, don't forget that squeeze and just paying attention. Anytime you're doing an exercise that's a little less intense for you, that is where you would take that additional mental energy and focus on getting all of the form cues correct. Okay, that will help train you for when it gets super hard and you start loading. So just make sure the knees are not coming in either direction as you sit or stand. Okay, so think about driving those knees out, tracking those knees to your middle and big toes. All right, so the first exercise, we're going to do the box step up with the knee raise. So we'll start one leg at a time. You're going to step 1 foot up and drive through the heel to go straight up. Okay, if you need to tap down, fine, but drive the other leg forward so that you get a nice hip extension at the top. Gently place it down with the hinge down. Again, when you're coming up, you're trying to drive straight up through the heel and hinge gently back down. Okay, push through the heel and down. So you could have your weights here, either dumbbells to the side, kettlebell in the center, barbell in the back. Okay, they all have a little bit of a different effect. Okay, so now we'll transition to the other side. we are staying with one leg on this side. Remember, drive through the heel and push your head straight up. Hinge it gently back down. Again, careful to track the knees over your big toe and middle toe and not letting that knee cave in, okay? If you need a little bit of a reprieve, you could tap that working leg down as well, okay? Don't forget that hip extension. It's the glute squeeze that's leading that knee driving forward. It's not the knee driving forward, okay? The glute that is doing the work. Straight up. All right. That was already the end of the first exercise. Second exercise, the Bulgarian split squat. This one, if you can, set up in the beginning from the ground first, okay? So that you already are starting with your foot placement correctly. So now that your foot's in place, you're going to hinge back, putting the weight through the heels, loading up that front leg, and when you come up, again, squeeze and hip extension through, all right? Now, as you hinge down and you come up, you want to drive straight up versus drive back. So it should not be where you're driving back first and losing out on that hip extension at the top, okay? So your knees should not be moving. Don't forget to squeeze, okay? Once you're set up from the bottom up, you basically have your position. So you could just stay in place and switch legs, okay? So hinge back, really load up. If you want to go all the way down and tap the floor, okay? Or hold your weights. So your hips should never be traveling further back as you come up, okay? Basically your kneecap, if you could eyeball your kneecap, it should stay in place, okay? And continuing to track your knee over your big toe and middle toe to prevent your knees from caving inward. These are so killer. All right. And especially if you do it with weights, all the more killer. All right, what's the next one? This is lateral step up. Remember the lateral step up? We're actually moving laterally before we step up. So we're going to set this leg in place by moving it, moving your body. This leg just comes along for the right as you step up, okay? That was a bad rep. What you don't want is that wobbly knee. You want this time for that knee to be tracking over your third and fourth toes. Okay, so slightly out. And as you drive up, instead of driving through the heels, you want to drive through the entire flat of the foot. Okay, so try to keep your weight evenly distributed. Okay, do add that knee extension for that additional, or that knee raise for that additional hip extension. Another thing to take note, you're going to drive into the movement to the side, okay? When you're coming down, you're going to reverse that, okay? So you're not just plopping straight down. And notice basically my working leg just stays elevated, okay? It's a huge difference for me on how much my foot is able to stay flat, because I have such a problem with my left foot, left side, okay? So reverse it and gently place that down. And then as you're coming up, remember we load this leg first. We're not jumping off of this at all. This leg, the ground leg just follows along, okay? All right, that was basically one round. Okay, this is your option to continue for a second round on your own. We're gonna do some active stretches, more for the hamstrings, you know, but just because it's a good one to know when you're making use of an elevation. So with the active stretch, what we wanna do is actually contract your quads first, okay? Then hinge back. Hinge, hinge, hinge to start getting that stretch. The standing leg could be slightly bent through the knee, and never think of bringing your head towards the toe. You want to think about really actually hinging, and therefore your head will drive forward as you get deeper into that hinge and basically start closing in on that pike. So it's always your lower belly getting closer to your hip flexors, okay, not the head coming down and rounding through. All right, so at least 45 seconds is great, minimum 30 seconds. So same thing here, flex through the quads so you have a nice hinge, and you're activating your quads so you could kind of let your hamstrings relax, okay? But this is an active stretch, so keep that in mind and just focus on the hip hinge, hip hinge, hip hinge, okay? Obviously, I'm very inflexible, okay? Your hands could be wherever is comfortable, okay? If you can't breathe normally and you're holding your breath, you need to dial it back, all right? At your in range, whatever that is, you should be able to still breathe normally. All right. Okay, so that was a 10-minute round doing 1-minute increments, okay? So give that a go, and I'll see you in the next post for routine number 3.